We are over at the neighbors and we are going to start planting all of these raised beds with some cool season crops. Welcome to Kim's Cozy Corner. I'm Kim, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel and thank you for stopping by with us today. And if you've been here before, welcome back. We are over at my neighbor's garden, and I take care of my neighbor's garden along with my own for those who don't know. My neighbors are getting up in age and they don't have the ability to manage a full garden anymore. So I'm over at the neighbors and I'm planting the crops that I know they enjoy most. And anything extra, I get to take back to my house. So we just take care of this garden together. And we are in late spring, and it's April 7th, I believe it is. And early April, I still have frost in Southwest Ohio, Zone 6A. My last frost date is not until April 25th, is what it says, but you know, who knows? I could have frost in May. I don't go by that. But for the next 10 days, there's no frost in sight. So I am going to go ahead and put some cool season crops in the ground. And I've already put some in the ground already. I just didn't have the camera on. So let's start with sharing what we've already done. On a bright sunny day, I went ahead and put in some cauliflower and some red cabbage because it was warm and I had a few minutes, so we went ahead and took care of that. I did the same thing in this bed here, but this bed is two different types of cabbage. One's an early cabbage and one is a later cabbage in this bed here. So I have cabbage in here, and in this bed here, I put a little bit of leaf lettuce in here for my neighbors because they're ready to start enjoying fresh salads again. So we started a little bit of lettuce in here. Now, one of the things that I want to show you is that I didn't cover these beds at all. And we've had frost the last 2 nights, and you can see that this lettuce is not affected by it at all. Lettuce can take a light frost, as well as this cabbage here. And the lows got down in the low 30s Fahrenheit. And for Celsius, I'll put it up here. I'm going to have to look that up. But the temperatures got down, and we did have a light frost last night, and they were not affected at all. At all. No issues whatsoever. So when I say that cool season crops can take a light frost, here's the evidence right here behind me showing you that brassicas, your broccoli, your cauliflowers, your cabbage, your kohlrabi, they can all take a light frost. Even your lettuce can take a light frost. Now, I did cover some of my items up just so I could show people how to protect your plants in case you're going to have a frost. But I didn't cover these up at all, and they look amazing. And they've been in the ground now for about a week. And the frost came last night. The grass is still wet from the frost this morning, but there's no damage whatsoever. And we've been down in the low 30s now for 2 nights in a row, and there's no damage here. So that's the proof. A light frost is okay on your cool season crops, even at 30 degrees. But now let's get into what we're going to plant today. All of my neighbors' beds are raised beds. It looks like they are about 6 inches deep of potting soil that I've added over the last couple of years. And below there is clay soil. It's very dense, it's thick, and it's clay soil. So the top 6 inches or so is light, is fluffy, and it's potting mix. And then on top of there, we have leaf mulch. My neighbor does a really good job every year of covering her beds with a light leaf mulch. Even during the regular season, that's something that she does for me. I don't need to do anything but move this leaf mulch back and prepare the holes that I'm going to put my transplants in. And so I have my garden journal out here. And in my garden journal, we are going to add, got my little pen here, I would have forgot. So this is my garden journal where I used indoors for all of my seed starts. So I put what I was starting, the plan of when I should start them, when I actually started them, and now when I'm transplanting them out into the garden. Now this is not a professional garden journal. So if you're looking for something for a large sale, a large garden, and a very professional setup, this is not for you. I made this journal for me and what works for me, which is just a home garden setup. And I think it's perfect for that. So we talk about how you set your vegetables up in the front, when to plant them is what I should say, when to start your seeds, when you're going to transplant them. You can put all of that in the front. Behind there, I have a schedule in here on a feeding schedule. Like when should I fertilize? When was the last time I fertilized? So I can keep track of how often I fertilize my garden. And then in the very back of the journal here are garden note pages. And I know you can't really see this, but there are garden note pages back here. So if I have a particular vegetable that's not doing well, I can write that vegetable down, where that vegetable is, the problems that it's having, what I need to do differently. So when I go to plant this next year, if I decide to plant it, I can remember how that vegetable did the year before. So that's the garden journal. And in the journal, I'm turning to where I have my broccoli, because that's what we're getting ready to add to these two beds here. We already have the cauliflower. We already have the cabbage. And now we're going to add some broccoli over here. So I'm going to the broccoli in my book. And today is April 6th. April 7th. Today is April 7th. I'm marking down in the book that I'm starting this here. So my book's up to date for the broccoli. And now we're going to prepare these beds. Now I plant using the square foot garden method. There is a book out there, and here's a picture of that book, of one of the copies. There's 2 or 3 different versions out there, but here's a picture of the very first square foot garden book that I ever picked up and used. My neighbor gave it to me, and I've lent it out several times to others, but here's the book. And that's the method that I mostly use in the beds over here. So these are 4x4 square foot beds. And for broccoli, I can put 1 broccoli for every square foot. So that means I'm going to put 4 in a row in each one of these beds beside me. And I did the same thing with the cabbage in this bed, as well as with the cauliflower and the cabbage in that bed. So I already have 8 plants in both of these beds. We're going to add 4 more. And then I still have room for 4 more vegetables that are, or larger vegetables, that are going to take 1 foot space apiece. So there will be a total of 16 plants in both of these beds. To prepare my space, I am going to dig a little. First, let me bag up. I'm going to pull the mulch back. And the mulch is very heavy here. And I am using my new garden tool. It's from Berry and Bird. It's a tool that does a little bit of everything. I can scoop with it. I can pull weeds with it. I can cut with it. It's a pretty nice tool. Link is in the description below. But I'm going to dig my little holes out. And I don't need them deep because there's so much mulch here. I'm going to use the mulch as well. Now, this bed has a little more of the clay soil that I like. So we'll be adding more potting soil to this bed here. what I do is as I empty my containers every year, and you don't have to empty your containers every year, but I empty my containers into my raised beds to improve the soil of my raised beds. And then when I'm ready to replant those containers, I use fresh potting soil in those containers. Eventually, I'm going to have enough soil and I'm not going to need to do that unless I keep adding to my garden, which is most likely going to be the case. So now I have my hose kind of dug out there, and we're going to add a little bit of organic fertilizer, whatever organic fertilizer you would like to use. This is just a garden tone. I'm going to put a little bit of that in each one of the holes versus across the whole bed like I used to do. You typically do not want to put your plants on straight fertilizer because it could damage and burn your roots. If it's a super concentrated fertilizer, mine's not. Garden Tone is a 344, so it's not condensed. It's light and it'll slowly release over time. I'm also going to use my Mykos. Mykos is a mycorrhizal inoculant. It helps with root structure. And I only use Mykos on transplants. So Mykos, I think I have a description. I have a link in the description to the Mykos as well, I think. And there are other different name brands out there. Mykos just happens to be the one that I use. And I got my little garden stool here. It's a kneeler as well as a taller stool. The link to this will be in the description below as well. So I'm going to loosen up the root structures of this broccoli just a little bit. And I am going to get this in the hole. I'm going to plant it just a teeny bit deeper than it was from when I purchased it. And I'm going to do that for all 4 of these broccoli. And I did say purchase. I lost some of my plants a few weeks ago. I went out of town and they weren't taken care of the way I would. So I did lose some plants. And so I have some of my own, but I did have to supplement this year. Not a lot, just a few. And once I have those in, I'm going to push this leaf mulch back around it. Leaf mulch provides moisture. It kind of holds that moisture in. It also prevents weeds from growing if you have a nice leaf mulch in place. You can use straw as well. Now, if you live farther south than me, in the States anyway, I'm sure you could have already had your brassicas in the ground probably 2 or 3 weeks ago or more, depending on where you are. But this is the perfect time for me in my area based on my last frost date. Not so much the zone, but the last frost date. There are so many earthworms, which is a good thing. But y'all, I hate worms. I'll just be honest with you. I don't like worms. I don't like to touch them. I don't like to see them. But I know that's a good thing for them to be in the garden. All right, I got the soil nice and loose. Let's get this next set buried. When I'm working in the garden, I have to remind myself of my age. I'm 52 years young. I just had a birthday, but these knees are not what they used to be. We will work on these 2, then we'll come back over there so they don't have to get down on these knees. Get my Mykos in the hole. Now, I always like to loosen that root ball, especially on these where they're wrapped around pretty good. There were worms in there. Whew. I'm going to use my little tool to mix that up. because the worms are crawling all over the place, which is great. 4 more broccoli in. And now we're going to work on this bed behind me. In this bed right here, we are actually going to direct sow some seeds in this bed right here. Now, this row of beds behind me here, when we get a little later in the season, they get blocked a little bit by evening sun. They have great morning sun, but by 4 o'clock or so, this area gets shaded out. So I am putting in cool season crops that doesn't really want that hot summer August sun anyway, but it's going to have plenty of sun throughout the overall day so that it'll get enough sunlight to continue to produce up until they're ready to be harvested. In this bed right here, this bed honestly has done really well, but it's the bed that I have probably the worst soil in. I did not fully top off this bed last year. It's full of leaf mulch, which has been breaking down, which is great, but I'm going to push all of this leaf mulch back, and I'm going to give this bed a really, really good fertilizing. You know what? I'm going to bring a bag of soil over here too. Let me do that first. Now this bed does have drip irrigation that I put in several years ago, and it's so far under the leaf mulch, I'm having some time getting it out. When you're pulling your weeds out, you want to pull them out from the roots. If you don't get the roots, it's coming back. It's going to come back every time. So make sure you pull your weeds out and you get all of that root structure. And the end of this tool that I have right here will help you do that. I also use the tool to open this bag of Fox Farm potting soil. This is Happy Frog Fox Farm. And I also have Ocean Forest, but Happy Frog is what I put my hands on first. And now I'm going to pull the leaf mulch back over this way so I can add some of the potting mix to the other side. All right, and I'm bent, all my back is going to let me bend, so we're going to pull it this way. This bed has about 4 inches or more of good quality potting soil, and underneath there's some potting soil in this bed. And then there's every bit 4 inches of leaf mulch on top of that. So this bed is happy now. It's very happy. And the reason why I wanted to make sure I had a good level of potting soil in here is because of what we're getting ready to plant. So we are going to plant turnip greens. And so I am planting a purple top white globe turnip. And here's a picture of it right here over my shoulder. And I personally like it for the greens. I eat turnip greens. Y'all, I don't like turnips. Ooh, I don't like turnips. I don't like beets either. I feel like they're in the same family of disgustingness. I don't like them. But some of my family and friends specifically requested turnips. So we will be growing a purple top white globe turnip green. I will enjoy the greens. They can enjoy the turnips. We will also be growing a 7 top turnip. On this one, it says that the roots are not edible. I don't know about that. But for the 7 top turnip greens, it'll be more about the greens and not the turnips. So those are the two different types of turnips we're getting ready to grow. And then next to that, we're going to grow some mustard greens in this bed here. And I am going to fill this entire bed up with these two different types of greens, with the exception of the back row closest to you at the camera there. And we will put something in the very back there, either cucumbers or tomatoes or something that's going to vine up a trellis. But the other 12 squares, if we were doing a square foot gardening method, will be 100% covered in greens. So I need to pull back the mulch again to make sure I got my rows figured out the way I want them to be so we can get these planted. And I need to update my book. So let's update the book first. All right. We're going to put the mustard on this side. We're going to put the turnips on that side. And we will get right to it. I always follow the instructions on the seed pack when I'm planting my seeds. Once you get comfortable planting certain varieties, certain types of vegetables, it's okay to deviate if you know what you're deviating on. For my mustard seeds, I don't plant one every foot because I don't let my greens get huge. I like to just scatter my seeds out, and I will harvest off of them, and then I'll plant a few, let them grow a little longer, and I'll harvest some more. I'll plant a few more, and I'll harvest some more. So I just like to spread them out. Some may be too close together, some may be too far apart. This is just how I like to do my mustard greens. When I direct sow my collard greens, I do the same thing, and I've been growing this way for years. But if you've never grown this type stuff before, follow the directions on your seed pack. We'll use this to kind of mark the area. That one's mint. So I know where the mustard greens begin and end. I did bring fertilizer out here, but I didn't put any fertilizer down. I know there's some fertilizer in that Fox farm. I should have put some down and I didn't. I tell you what, we'll just put some worm castings, because I know the worm castings will not hurt these mustard greens. And I still need to cover these mustard greens up with at least 1/4 of an inch of soil. And I was going to just use the leaf mulch to do that, but I think I'm going to put a little worm castings down first and then a light coating of this leaf mulch. Now this leaf mulch has so much organic matter that's already fully broken down that it's almost dirt now. Worm casting is what, a 100. I mean, worm castings will not hurt your garden. They can only help. All right, so the purple top white globe turnips, we're going to put down here on the end. And my goal is to plant these every 2 or 3 inches apart. That's my goal. Okay, so I'm to this middle section here. In this middle section, we are going to do the 7 top. I'm going to grab just a little bit of the garden tone. It's very light, so I don't have to worry about working it in. Now this bed is done, and I forgot to save the back row for something, vining, but that's okay because we can still vine back there even with the turnips growing. I'll just have to scratch around it. But let me get my water line back in and this bed will be done. I'm back, but my camera's battery went dead, so I kept working without the camera on, but I wanted to take a minute to talk about what I did. So in this bed here, we will have tomatoes growing in this bed in the center. There will be 4 tomato plants, but it's too early for tomatoes. But it's not too early for lettuce and onion. And the lettuce, we planted that, a week and a half or so ago. I forgot now. So we already have some lettuce in here. We just gave it a good watering. And that's just on this one side. But along the edge, all the way around this bed, I planted onion. These were Walla Walla onion. These were my onion that were on their last leg 2 weeks ago, but they've bounced back since I've had them outside enjoying this wonderful sunlight and this spring weather in Southwest Ohio. So I gently pulled all of those plants apart and I planted them around the outside of this bed, and we just watered them in. And I know they're looking a little weepy and they're all laid over, but give them a couple of days and they'll be standing upright and they'll be happy in the garden. And they'll be even more happy because now they got room for the legs to spread out a little bit. But these are Walla Walla onion. I spaced them out about 3 inches apart, and this is where they will be all season long. Now, in addition to this bed, while I was waiting on the battery to charge, we also put together one more GreenStalk. So let me pan over and show you the GreenStalk that we just put together for my neighbors. So in my spare time, if you want to call it spare time, we went ahead and put this GreenStalk back together. Now this GreenStalk was sitting on this corner from last year, and all we did was take it down and we added some fertilizer to each of the pockets, no different than the strawberry GreenStalk vertical planters we put together a few weeks ago, no different from the lettuce that we did in my garden a few weeks ago as well. So we did the same thing over here, but let me tell you what I planted. We had a good time, me and my neighbors, going through what we wanted to put into this GreenStalk. And so there are a variety of things in here, and I want to show you what goodness is in this GreenStalk. So up in the very top here, these are all different types of lettuce in the top tiers. But when I get down to this third tier, this is where I added in a couple kale greens in between the lettuce, because some people like to put kale in their salads. And so there are a few kale in here as well. There are heading lettuces in here. There's romaine lettuce in here. Now, they're looking a little sad because we just transplanted them, but they will be happy as well in a couple of days. In the bottom 2 tiers, we added some brassicas. So I have brassicas down here. I have broccoli. I have 1 cauliflower down here, and we have cabbage down here as well. So we will get to see just how well the brassicas do in this GreenStalk this year. Let me bring you in close and show you a close-up of this beautiful GreenStalk vertical planter. Now, as always, I like to do a little bit of garden art as we're putting my GreenStalk vertical planters together. We have reds, all reds in the top, and then we have all greens in the second layer. In the third and fourth tiers, we have a mixture of reds and greens, and then of course the brassicas are in the bottom. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful planter, and when it fills out, it's going to be amazing. So we've been busy, we've been in the garden, and we've been doing all kinds of stuff. The neighbors are going to be very, very happy with what we've done today. We've added to the broccoli, the cauliflower, the cabbage. We got turnip greens, we got mustard greens, we have lettuce over here, we have onion over here. They have everything they need to get them started this gardening season. So another great day in the garden just for you. So that's it of all of the gardening fun today. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. And Until next time, and I hope there will be a next time that you come back to Kim's Cozy Corner and hang out with me, Kim. Bye.